I was reborn and returned to the moment when Leo proposed to me. Leo, Hadatha who was always aloof, knelt on one knee, holding my favorite roses in his hand. But I knew that the person Leo most wanted to marry was his long-cherished first love. Not me. The man in front of me would cheat on his first love 2 years later and, for the sake of his first love, not hesitate to dig out my heart. So this time, how could I be so stupid as to believe the words of this man in front of me again? Therefore, I resolutely refused and turned around to seek cooperation with Leo's sworn enemy. Hugh. I was reborn and went back to the time when Leo proposed to me. The moment I opened my eyes, I saw Leo, Yanina, who was always aloof, kneeling on one knee, holding my favorite roses in his hand. My gaze was fixed on Leo all the time, as if I was getting to know him for the first time. I didn't listen to a single word of the mixed discussions around me. But I heard Leo's voice. He said, "Celine, I like you. Will you marry me?" Listening to Leo's confession, the bitterness in my heart surged up instantly. And I felt that this confession at the moment was so ridiculous. My name is Celine. And I'm Leo's girlfriend. But I knew that the man confessing his love affectionately in front of me would cheat on his first love and, for the sake of his first love, not hesitate to dig out my heart. Look, this is the man I loved all my life. And this is the ending I finally got. The people around started to cheer. But my heart didn't stir up any waves. My eyes met Leo's. Looking at his confident appearance, I suddenly laughed. I was a bit looking forward to seeing all his pride being crushed by me, and all his confidence being trampled under my feet. Since I have a chance to start over this time. And I won't be so stupid as to continue believing Leo's words. Moreover, I will personally take back what belongs to me. The corners of my mouth curled up slightly, and a hint of sarcasm flashed in my eyes. This time, it's my turn to not want you. Before being reborn, I originally thought that meeting Leo was the greatest luck in my life. Leo was my senior. I met him at the school sports meeting. At that time, due to my period, Leo noticed the abnormality of my pants and tied his school uniform around my waist. That was the first time I met Leo. And it was from then on that the girl's heart began to sprout. Later, on the day before Leo graduated, he found me and confessed to me. So we got together. Because I was still in school, Leo didn't choose to intern in another city. So during that period of time, we had a happy and wonderful life. When I graduated, I started to accompany Leo to start from scratch. And finally we founded a listed company together. Until now, that is. When Leo proposed to me, of course I happily accepted. In the 2 years of marriage, Leo treated me very well. We could be said to be a model couple. One day, having fulfilled my obsession, I learned from Leo's friend that his first love had returned to the country. From then on, Leo started to revolve around his first love. And he didn't even come home. Only then did I realize that the marriage I originally thought was happy could become so absurd. I actually became the substitute I least liked. Just because I resembled Leo's first love by 5/10. This is the reason why Leo chose to confess to me. Later, his first love had a heart problem. And I happened to have the highest compatibility with her. Leo actually wavered. Between me and his first love, he chose his first love. Until before I died, I saw Leo for the last time and heard that faint sorry, that was almost inaudible. I slowly closed my eyes, exhaled a mouthful of foul air, and opened them again. The excited look in my eyes because of Leo's proposal was instantly tinged with indifference. Looking at Leo's confident appearance, I just felt it was a bit ridiculous and pitiful. How could I have been fooled by Leo back then? However, to be fair, Leo did have a good-looking face. It's not just me who thinks Leo is good-looking. Even though he has a girlfriend, there are still people eager to get into his bed. However, Leo didn't even look at them. That's why I thought Leo was being faithful to me. It wasn't until his first love appeared that I suddenly woke up. I bent down, lowered my eyes, and carefully examined Leo's face. And I took 2 steps back, and my voice was a bit cold. "Sorry. I don't like you anymore. So we're breaking up." Although my voice was a bit soft, the people around, including Leo, heard it clearly. Leo seemingly didn't expect that I would actually refuse. His eyes were filled with disbelief. Leo stood up unsteadily and grabbed my wrist. The corners of his mouth trembled slightly. He opened his mouth, but in the end, he didn't say a word. I frowned, felt the pain from my wrist, but didn't exclaim. I just smiled unfairly. And I used all my strength to barely break free from Leo's hand. I turned around and prepared to leave without looking back. Leo seemed to be going crazy and tried to stop me. I was a bit worried about how to deal with Leo. At this time, a nice voice came from behind me. President Leo. Did your proposal get rejected? So you're going crazy? I turned around and saw Hugh standing in the crowd, with the look of watching a good show in his eyes. I knew Hugh, but only knew him. Hugh was Leo's sworn enemy. Hugh strode over with his long legs and stood between me and Leo, blocking my figure. I looked at Hugh, who suddenly appeared, with a bit of confusion in my eyes. I didn't have much interaction with Hugh, but why did he stand up to help? Leo's eyes were filled with hostility. He glanced at Hugh and said in an unhappy tone, "Hugh, why are you here? Celine, come here right now, or I'm really going to be angry." I stood behind Hugh and couldn't help rolling my eyes. It's like I really care. Leo found that his words didn't seem to work on me. So he wanted to come forward, but was stopped by Hugh again. President Leo. Celine has clearly rejected you. One should have self-awareness. After Hugh finished speaking, he didn't pay attention to Leo's gloomy face. Instead, he stepped forward and took my wrist, leaving the scene. I lowered my eyes and looked at Hugh's palm. I had a bold plan. As the saying goes, the enemy of my enemy is my ally. Why not use Hugh's hand to achieve my ultimate goal? I stopped and a clear voice rang out. Hugh. I have Leo's handle. Do you want to consider cooperating with me? Hugh also stopped. When he heard my question, he was a bit stunned. Then his tone was indifferent. Oh? Weren't you two a couple? What? Did you change your heart so quickly? Or was all this part of your plan to trick me into this act? I wasn't angry because of Hugh's words. After all, what he said was reasonable. No one would believe that I actually wanted to fight back against Leo. Hugh, don't rush to refuse. I can show my sincerity. And you can consider whether to cooperate with me or not. How about this? Tomorrow at noon. We'll meet at the coffee shop downstairs of your company. I'll show my sincerity then. How about it? Hugh hesitated for a moment. He was a bit curious about what I was up to. So he nodded slightly, indicating that he agreed to my proposal. I returned alone to the house where I lived with Leo. Leo hadn't come back yet. That's okay. Out of sight. Out of mind. I quickly packed a few clothes and my own documents and left there. Although Leo and I lived together, we always slept in separate rooms. Until I left, I didn't see Leo. Maybe at this moment, Leo was drinking to relieve boredom somewhere else. But now, these have nothing to do with me anymore. The next day at noon, I arrived at the coffee shop downstairs of Hugh's company as promised. There weren't many people in the coffee shop now. When I walked into the coffee shop, I saw Hugh sitting in the corner by the window at a glance. I sat down opposite Hugh. Hugh raised his eyebrows and asked me what I wanted to drink. I waved to the waiter. Soon, the two of us each ordered a cup of coffee. I handed the prepared note to Hugh, and my fingers accidentally touched his fingertips. Hugh shrank his fingertips slightly, looked up at me, as if asking with his eyes what this was. I picked up the spoon and stirred it back and forth in the coffee cup. My thin lips parted slightly. President Hugh might as well open it and take a look. Maybe there's a surprise inside. Hugh was a bit puzzled, but he still opened the note. It was just about the moles that Leo had placed in their company. This was the bargaining chip I brought to seek refuge with Hugh. After Hugh read the contents inside, his face wasn't very good. He might have thought there were moles inside, but he didn't expect that there were actually one or two high-level people among them. I seemed not to see Hugh's gloomy face. I just smiled and played with the spoon, making circles in the coffee cup. Hugh quickly composed himself and looked down and said, Leo didn't expect that his woman would actually betray him, right? But if the contents on this note are true, I will cooperate with you. Only then did I look up and face him. My thin lips parted. I'm not his woman now. If you want to say who hates him the most in the world, it can only be me. After all, the enemy of an enemy is an ally. Hugh just smiled when he heard this and didn't take my words seriously. I quickly walked out of the coffee shop. Although Hugh didn't clearly cooperate with me. However, I was confident that he would come to me in a few days. After all, the list I gave was not a joke, but real. As long as Hugh investigated secretly, he would find something interesting. This was the second gift I gave to Hugh for our meeting. In the next 2 days, besides refusing to meet Leo, I just started to eat, drink, and have fun. This was the life I yearned for. On the 3rd day, I received a call from Hugh. I wasn't surprised how he got my phone number. Hugh's magnetic voice came from the phone. Celine, long time no see. Now, I can talk to you about the opportunity for cooperation. Let's meet at X restaurant tonight. I raised my eyebrows and said clearly and pleasantly, President Hugh is a day earlier than I expected. But since it's an invitation from President Hugh, of course I will go. Listening to my teasing voice, Hugh chuckled and teased, President Leo is really blind to have missed you. I didn't discuss these things with Hugh. I just told him that I would arrive on time and then hung up the phone. In the evening, I arrived at X restaurant in advance. I followed the waiter to the reserved private room. I pushed open the door and found that Hugh was already in the private room. Our eyes met. Neither of us expected that the other would arrive early. Hugh coughed softly and said a bit awkwardly, Hi. What a coincidence. You actually came so early. Come and sit. See if there's anything you don't eat. I pursed my lips, walked over and sat down. Then I asked Hugh what he wanted to eat and if he had any dietary taboos. Soon, let out a low sigh. The dishes were served on the table one after another. I told Hugh some of my plans. And then Hugh nodded and shook his head from time to time. Finally, head and sigh. We discussed our plans. After confirming the plan, I got up and said goodbye to Hugh and left alone. After returning home, my phone rang again. I turned on the screen and saw the caller ID Leo. I didn't hang up the phone immediately. Nor did I answer it right away. Instead, at the moment when Leo was about to lose patience and hang up, I pressed the answer button. Leo looked a bit dazed at the phone screen. Since I rejected his marriage proposal last time, I hadn't answered Leo's calls. Leo's hand holding the phone trembled slightly, and his voice was gentle. Celine, you finally answered my call. I called you several times. But you hung up. Have you calmed down now? Come back if you have. Listening to his concerned tone, I suppressed the urge to vomit. I was curious. How could he endure the nausea and be with himself? After all these years of relationship, it still couldn't compare to his first love in his eyes. I cleared my throat. Didn't respond to his words. But just changed the subject. President Leo, I want to go back to work in the company tomorrow. What's your opinion? Hearing this, Leo was a bit stunned. After a moment, he came back to his senses and said gently, I thought it was something serious. The company is originally yours. If you want to come to work, just come. You don't even need to ask me about such a small matter. A smile appeared on the corner of my mouth. If I hadn't been reborn, I might really have been confused by his words. When his first love comes back, I'll be nothing. Before that, I have to take back what belongs to me. How could I let them off so easily? I went back to work in Leo's company. As soon as I arrived at my office, Leo followed me in right after, with a breakfast in his hand. I've always had a stomach problem. As long as I don't eat well every meal, I'm prone to stomachaches. So Leo even learned to cook porridge for me, and would always take me out to eat. However, now I don't care about the porridge he cooked himself anymore. Leave it for his so-called first love. Leo put the thermos box in front of my desk and said carefully, Celine, no I've had a low sigh. Your stomach is not good. This is the porridge I cooked for you. Drink some. Otherwise your stomach will hurt again later. Seeing Leo's concerned greeting, the people around showed a hint of envy on their faces. I thought their expressions were a bit funny. Why didn't they know, and were always envious of others? I looked up and met Leo's eyes with a hint of unease. And gently refused. No need. President Leo, I'm not blessed to enjoy your porridge. Besides, I've already had breakfast on the way here. Take the porridge back. Hearing this, the people around gasped. They all knew that Leo and Celine had always been a couple. But now, my attitude had done a 180-degree turn. So they were a bit surprised at what had happened between Leo and me. I didn't explain to the other colleagues. In their shock, I got up to get coffee. Leo looked at the thermos box on the table helplessly. Finally, having fulfilled he left empty-handed without taking the thermos box back. When I came back, I didn't see Leo. Only the thermos box on the table. I walked up and threw the thermos box into the trash can. I felt an inexplicable sense of comfort in my heart. Sure enough, trash should stay with trash. That's more environmentally friendly. I ignored all the complicated looks around me. After Leo showed up once in the morning, he didn't appear in front of me again until I got off work. I was quite satisfied with such a result. After that, Leo disappeared for a while. When Leo returned to the company again, I saw a girl following behind him. She looked about 5 or 6 tenths similar to me. The girl's appearance couldn't be said to be extremely stunning, but could only be described as delicate and pretty. I knew the girl behind Leo. She was Leo's long-cherished first love. The girl's name was Grace. She was Leo's childhood sweetheart. However, this time, Grace actually returned to the country earlier and didn't appear according to the timeline of my previous life. The moment Leo looked at me, there was some awkwardness and embarrassment on his face. As if I didn't see Leo's eagerness, I just turned my gaze to Grace. My eyes collided with Grace's in the air, as if there were sparks. I was a bit puzzled because I felt a hint of hostility from Grace. I didn't quite understand, so I simply stopped thinking about it. So I ignored the two of them and left alone. Grace pursed her lips and looked at my departing back. She followed Leo back to the president's office. Grace looked up, her eyes red, and said softly, "Leo, does Celine not like me? Or did I do something wrong to make her angry?" Leo couldn't bear to hear Grace's sad words. So he stepped forward and hugged Grace to comfort her softly. Leaning on Leo's chest, a cold light flashed in Grace's originally pitiful eyes. She knew that Leo liked her. And Celine was just a substitute. But so what? How could she let Celine touch the things she, Grace, had her eyes on? After that, Grace became Leo's personal assistant. The eyes around would occasionally explore between me and Grace. I wasn't too surprised by this. Leo would take Grace with him to every event he attended. As a result, this gave me a great opportunity. The project that Leo got before was actually something I helped him strive for. Although it hadn't been completely finalized yet, it was very likely to fall into Leo's hands. However, during this period, I helped Hu Yan reconnect with the client. Now, it's almost certain that the project will be awarded to Hu Yan. I wasn't too surprised by this. After all, Hu Yan's company is much stronger than Leo's. I just don't know why Hu Yan tolerated Leo jumping around in front of him so much. However, the project snatched from Leo's hands this time helped Leo earn more than 3 billion in funds later. I passed by the break room and heard several colleagues talking about Grace and Leo. I heard that President Leo is going to prepare a welcome banquet for Grace. I also heard that Grace is President Leo's first love. And Celine is just a substitute. If President Leo likes Grace, what about Celine? I really didn't see that coming. Listening to the gossip coming from the break room, I found it a bit funny. I never thought that the gossip would involve me. Before I was reborn, Leo also held a grand welcome banquet for Grace. I asked him about it at that time. Leo told me that he was just preparing a party for a good friend and told me not to think too much. At first, I believed his words until I attended the party of the protagonist and learned it from others. Leo was head over heels in love with this girl. His unattainable first love. This time, with the return of his first love, is Leo going to rekindle his old feelings? But even after hearing such words, I still believed that Leo would always like me. Because Leo had already proposed to me. My hand couldn't help but tremble, rubbing the ring on my finger. My eyes were firm, believing that Leo wouldn't betray our relationship and that Leo would choose me. Because it was Leo. Yes, having fulfilled my obsession. Because it was Leo. He gave up on me who had built the business from scratch with him and ignored all my efforts. I acted as if nothing had happened, going to work and getting off work on time every day. After everything was ready, I sent a message to Hu Yan. I seemed to see Leo's anger and his helpless expression. My mood immediately brightened, and I couldn't help but hum to light-hearted tunes and left the company. A week later, as I wished, the project in Leo's hands was actually snatched away by his sworn enemy. Leo was furious and yelled at his subordinates. Besides that, he was at a loss. After all, Leo had invested a lot of money in this project. In the end, it was like making wedding clothes for his sworn enemy. Hu Yan. Leo thought of me immediately. Now only I could help him. Because I helped him get this project, maybe I still had a way to get it back. I looked at the incoming call reminder in my hand. I didn't hang up the phone, but just pressed the mute button. The surroundings suddenly became quiet. Hu Yan's voice came from behind. I'm even more curious about you now. What on earth made you so heartless and forget about your past relationship? I came back to my senses and saw Hu Yan walking towards me step by step with a wine glass in his hand, with a hint of exploration on his face. I was still a bit on guard against Hu Yan. After all, he was not an easy person to deal with. I just didn't know why he didn't finally take action against Leo's group. I was used to not thinking about things I couldn't figure out. I raised the red wine glass in my hand and nodded slightly towards him, indicating that our cooperation was pleasant. I lowered my eyes and took a sip of the wine, naturally ignoring the sad look that flashed in Hu Yan's eyes. The next day, I sat up from the bed with a bit of a headache. After coming to my senses, I started to wash up and prepare to go to Leo's group. This was the first gift I gave Leo. Naturally, I had to go to the scene to see the other person's interesting expression. I was still happy to watch the show, as long as it wasn't about me. Sure enough, the moment I entered the company, the surrounding air cooled down a bit. Everyone kept a low profile and didn't dare to speak loudly. Not long after I returned to my office, Leo came again. Seeing his haggard look, I suppressed a smile and showed a hint of confusion in my eyes. Seeing my expression, Leo was a bit angry and asked, "Celine, where were you yesterday? Why didn't you answer my phone?" I looked at him in confusion and said weakly, "I had a stomachica yesterday and went to bed early. I didn't hear the phone. But we've broken up. You're not qualified to ask me now." Leo's eyes widened slightly. He had always thought that I was just playing around with him. Until now, he finally noticed something from my eyes. I wasn't playing around with him, but really leading him. Leo clenched his fists, took half a step back, and his eyes were a bit red. He hadn't done anything to sorry her. How could she just leave him like this? At this time, Leo's phone rang. He took out his phone, saw the caller ID, and then strode away. Looking at his back, a mocking smile appeared on the corner of my mouth. I didn't need to think to know that this call could only be from his first love. Otherwise, he wouldn't leave in such a hurry. It was the weekend. I originally planned to go out for some fresh air, but I didn't expect to see Hu Yan and Grace at the mall. I looked at them from behind and found that their relationship was not ordinary. I was a bit surprised by this. Could it be that this time, I still couldn't escape my destined fate? But I was still not reconciled. If Hu Yan and Grace were also on the same side, then I would have to reconsider my cooperation partner. In the following few days, I didn't pay any more attention to Hu Yan. Until this evening, I received a text message from Hu Yan. After much hesitation, I still wanted to ask about his attitude. After all, I naturally understand the principle that if you doubt someone, don't use them. And if you use someone, don't doubt them. Rather than thinking here, it's better to be straightforward. However, this time we didn't meet at a restaurant but at a bar. I looked up at the plaque. For the first time, I thought Hu Yan was a bit crazy. But since I'm already here, it doesn't hurt to go in and take a look. I might as well consider it as coming to see handsome guys. The moment I walked into the bar, several gazes were cast in my direction. I slightly furrowed my brows, feeling a bit unaccustomed to the noise inside. After all, I had never been to a bar since I was a child. Before, I was too young. And later, Leo didn't like it. So I never had the chance to come to a bar. I rubbed my ears and walked towards the second floor. There were 2 uniformed staff members standing at the entrance of the stairs. After I explained the situation to them, one of the staff members led me straight up to the second floor and to the innermost part of the corridor. After thanking the staff member, I raised my hand and knocked on the door. The private room was opened from the inside, and Hugh Yan's magnetic voice came from above. "Well, you actually arrived right on time this time." Hugh Yan looked at his watch and spoke to himself, then stepped aside to let me in. Only then did I see that there were not only Hugh Yan and me in the private room. There were 4 or 5 people sitting inside. When they saw me, I could feel their somewhat amazement expressions. I didn't quite understand why they were so amazement to see me, as if they had seen something incredible. The next second, I felt Hugh Yan's hand hold my wrist. I didn't struggle to break free from Hugh Yan's hand. I just let him pull me to the table. Hugh Yan introduced me to his friends. After I greeted them, I sat down next to Hugh Yan. After all, I didn't know them. Relatively speaking, I was more willing to sit next to Hugh Yan. Soon, let out a low sigh. We started playing games. Most of the time, I lost. So I kept drinking. Occasionally, Hugh Yan would also drink for me. I made an excuse and went to the bathroom. There, I met someone. I didn't expect Grace to be here. Since she's here, then Leo is most likely to come along. My appearance is the kind that makes people feel stunning at first sight. Compared with me, Grace is not just a little bit worse. I was a bit disappointed. I thought Leo's taste wouldn't be too bad. But now I realize that not only does he have bad taste, but his eyesight has also been left in some corner. Grace naturally also noticed me. She stood behind me, crossing her arms, and her tone was a bit condescending. "Celine, I advise you to stay away from Leo, or I won't let you off easily." I shook the water off my hands, turned around, pretended to think, and then spoke. "Oh, who do I think it is? It turns out to be the one who specializes in collecting trash. Since you like Leo so much, take him. After all, trash and trash are a perfect match." Grace didn't expect me to be so sharp-tongued and was immediately angered. I didn't stay in the bathroom for too long and then walked out. I had already anticipated that I might meet Leo in the bar next. I just didn't expect to meet Leo again so soon. The moment Leo saw me, his originally good-looking eyebrows instantly knitted together, and his face visibly darkened. Leo stepped forward and grabbed my hand, sternly questioning. "Celine, didn't I tell you not to come to the bar? You're treating my words like fall on deaf ears." I ignored his roar and used all my strength to shake off Leo's hand. Then, let out a low sigh. I looked at him like he was a fool. Grace heard Leo's words and came out of the bathroom. She saw Leo grabbing my hand. When Leo saw Grace come out, a rare look of panic appeared in his eyes. Leo didn't look at me again. Instead, he walked past me and went straight to Grace's side, whispering something to explain. At this moment, I inexplicably felt a bit embarrassed. But the next second, I fell into a gentle embrace. I wanted to look up, but the other person's movement was faster than mine. He pressed my head against his chest, listening to the strong heartbeat. My originally somewhat impetuous emotions seemed to be soothed. Hugh Yan's voice seemed to come from a distant place. "Celine, it's okay. Let me take you away. Okay?" Listening to Hugh Yan's question, my eyes were a bit dazed, as if something forgotten was starting to germinate. I let Hugh Yan take me back to the private room. When I came to my senses, I was already in the private room. It was a bit oppressive around, and from time to time, there were a few curses about Leo. When they noticed that I had come to my senses, they stood aside awkwardly and smiled. After all, it was a bit embarrassing to be heard by the ex-girlfriend of the person they were speaking ill of. I didn't pay much attention to them. I just turned my head to look at Hugh Yan and spoke softly. "Can I drink?" When I asked this question, I was slightly stunned, not understanding why I asked like this. So, without waiting for Hugh Yan's answer, I started drinking. Hugh Yan and his friends didn't stop me. They just drank with me on the side. I felt that such friendship seemed good. as if I had returned to my college days. I don't have a very good tolerance for alcohol. After drinking for a while, I started to get drunk. After Hugh Yan said goodbye to his friends, he picked me up and left the bar. My head was a bit drowsy. I seemed to hear those people muttering, "Old Yan has completely fallen for this Celine." At that time, my head was a bit drowsy, so I didn't pay much attention and soon forgot about it. Hugh Yan gently placed me in the passenger seat and thoughtfully buckled up my seatbelt for me. Hugh Yan didn't take me back home but brought me to his apartment. Looking at my sleeping face, he couldn't help but reach out and stroke my side face. The next day when I woke up, I felt a bit of a headache. I slowly came to my senses, looked around, and found that this wasn't my room. I looked down at my clothes, and then let out a sigh of relief. At this time, the door was knocked 3 times. My voice was slightly hoarse as it came from the room. "Come in." As the voice fell, the door was pushed open from the outside. Hugh Yan was wearing casual clothes and holding a small plate in his hand. He walked in calmly. Hugh Yan noticed the hint of confusion in my eyes and smiled. "You're awake. Get up and have some porridge. And then drink the hangover soup. Your head won't hurt so much then." As he spoke, Hugh Yan reached out and ruffled my messy hair. I pouted and patted Hugh Yan's hand. Then I asked Hugh Yan where the bathroom was. After getting the answer, I got out of bed, walked past Hugh Yan, and went straight to the bathroom to wash up. Then I came back and started having breakfast. After having breakfast, I was thinking about how to ask Hugh Yan about his relationship with Grace. Hugh Yan sat on the edge of the bed, his tone a bit helpless. "Celine, do you have something you want to ask me?" I was slightly stunned. I didn't expect Hugh Yan to speak first, so, following his words, I asked, "Hugh Yan, I saw you and Grace in the business district before. What's your relationship?" Hugh Yan chuckled. "I was wondering why you've been ignoring me recently. So it's about this. I met Grace abroad. This time she suddenly returned to the country. I asked her to come and help. I was a bit confused." What did Hugh Yan mean by that? Hugh Yan looked at my confused look and explained. "Grace was arranged by me to be by Leo's side. I have a favor with her. Grace has always wanted to repay me. So she agreed to help as soon as she heard about this. I didn't expect that Grace had only returned to the country to help Hugh Yan. So Leo was just a poor wretch, unable to get the love he desired. However, Grace's attitude yesterday was not as Hugh Yan said, and at that time, the way Grace looked at Hugh Yan clearly had a bit of love in it. But where did Grace's hostility towards me come from? Leo had already been under her control. After coming out of Hugh Yan's villa, I went directly back to the company. Leo had been busy with Grace's matters and didn't devote much energy to me. I was also happy to be at leisure, working hard in the company, besides acting lazy outside. I also handed over some of Leo's handles to Hugh Yan. It wasn't that I trusted Hugh Yan, but even if he wanted to drag me down, I had a way to save myself and could also drag Hugh Yan down at the same time. Since coming out of the bar, Leo had been by Grace's side. Grace's eyes were red, and her voice was trembling. "Leo, did Celine reject you because of me? But there's nothing between us." A rare look of bitterness appeared on Leo's face. He gently patted Grace's back to comfort her. "Grace, having fulfilled why die. You're just too kind. You take everything upon yourself. This has nothing to do with you." Grace pursed her lips, and a hint of calculation flashed in her eyes. "But you two have been together for so long. Why did Celine suddenly reject you? Or did Celine fall in love with someone else?" Listening to Grace's words, Hugh Yan flashed through Leo's mind. A gloomy look appeared on Leo's face without him showing it. After comforting Grace, he left alone. Grace looked at Leo's back and a triumphant smile curved her lips. Leo didn't go home after coming out of Grace's apartment but returned to the company. As a result, after I had dinner and pushed open the door of the office, I saw Leo. At the moment, Leo seemed to be in a very bad mood. His face was gloomy, and he loudly questioned in an unhappy tone. Celine let out a low sigh. "Did you reject my proposal because of Hugh Yan?" I looked at Leo somewhat amusedly, and my voice was indifferent. "President Leo, what are you going crazy about? My rejection of you has nothing to do with others. On the contrary. You always show up in front of me with grace. Leo was a bit stunned, and then began to try to explain. No. Celine. Listen to me. I really only regard Grace as a younger sister. There's no. I didn't want to listen to his explanation anymore, so I sternly interrupted. Enough. Leo. I don't want to hear it. Please leave immediately. I pushed Leo out of my office. There were quite a few onlookers outside. After seeing Leo, they pretended to be very busy again. Since that time, I rarely saw Leo in the company. When I came out of the company, I saw Hugh Yan from a distance. I was a bit curious about why he was here. Hugh Yan waved at me. Out of curiosity, I walked up to him. The next moment, Hugh Yan pressed me onto the passenger seat and fastened my seat belt. All the way, although I was curious, I didn't say anything. I watched as the car slowly drove into the familiar alley in my memory. My family lived in this alley. Since I was reborn, I hadn't had the chance to come back and take a look. Even Leo rarely took me home. But how did Hugh Yan know that my home was here? After Hugh Yan parked the car, he noticed that I was in a daze and reminded me. Celine. Stop daydreaming. Uncle and Aunt are still waiting for us at home to have a meal together. I was completely stunned. All the way, Hugh Yan led me home. I didn't understand why Hugh Yan suddenly wanted to take me home and how he knew where my parents lived. It was not until Hugh Yan rang the doorbell and I saw my mother open the door that I really came to my senses. Feeling my mother's embrace, I couldn't help but let go of all my defenses. After coming out of home, I was already a bit in a trance. There was a hint of doting in Hugh Yan's eyes as he walked up to me. He put his arm around my waist and gently scraped the bridge of my nose with his hand. Sigh. Is my Celine really so heartless? Have you really forgotten Brother Yan? Hearing Hugh Yan's last words, my eyes widened instantly, and only his figure filled my pupils. I was originally a bit disbelieving, and in that memory I had cherished. At that time, a mother and son moved next door to my house. The woman was very beautiful, and her child was also very handsome. At that time, every time I came back from school, I liked to run to the neighbor's house. As time went by, I became the best friends with that big brother. He said his name was Hugh Yan. Since then, I had always followed behind Hugh Yan and called him Brother Yan. Later, when I was in high school, I found out that Hugh Yan's family had already moved away. I came back to my senses, and 2 tears involuntarily slid down from the corners of my eyes. So why did Hugh Yan leave in such a hurry back then? I hadn't even had the chance to say goodbye to him. No wonder I felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity when getting along with Hugh Yan. It turned out that it wasn't my illusion. Since I knew that Hugh Yan was the brother next door, Hugh Yan seemed to like feeding me. I protested against this, but it didn't have much effect. Later, once I went to a restaurant for a meal and unfortunately ran into Grace. This time, I didn't see Leo hovering around Grace. Well, after all, the company had already lost quite a few projects one after another. If Leo couldn't stabilize those old shareholders, I'm afraid he wouldn't even be able to keep his position as president in the end. The moment Grace saw me, she reached out to stop me. I still didn't like Grace's tone. Celine, whenever low sigh. Brother Yan is mine. Be sensible and leave on your own. I stopped, raised my eyebrows, and sized up Grace. I didn't know who gave her the courage to be so bold. Seeing that I was unmoved, Grace gritted her teeth and stepped forward, raising her hand as if to slap me. The next second, a clear slapping sound rang out in the hall. However, it wasn't me who got slapped, but Grace. Grace looked at me in disbelief. She couldn't believe that I actually slapped her. Her eyes were bloodshot, and she covered her face. I clapped my hands, and a clear sound rang out. Grace, my tolerance for you is limited. I don't care about the things that were snatched away. I didn't specify, but I believed that Grace could understand what I meant. As if she had been hit by something, Grace covered her face and left the restaurant. Without thinking, I knew that Grace was going to cry to Leo again. Sure enough, as soon as I walked into the company, I saw the strange looks from the company staff. Leo was sitting in the hall. When he saw me, he pulled Grace in front of me, and loudly questioned why I had slapped Grace. Grace was beside him, crying pitifully with her voice intermittent. "Celine, I know I was wrong. I won't appear in front of you again next time. Please don't hit me." As she spoke, Grace symbolically hid behind Leo. I raised my eyebrows and looked at Leo, saying in a flat tone, "Have you finished? If you have, please move aside. You're blocking my way." Leo seemed to be meeting me for the first time. He reached out to block my way, and said in a somewhat stiff tone, "Celine, stop making trouble. Apologize to Grace. She will forgive you." I raised my eyes, as if I had seen garbage. I closed my eyes, and continued to ignore them. Seeing my attitude, Leo felt a bit embarrassed and tried to save face for Grace. However, this time, I didn't let Leo have his way. I grabbed Leo's falling hand and instantly raised my other hand and slapped him hard on the face. A clear slapping sound rang out immediately. The people around looked at me in shock, including Grace. When she heard the slapping sound, she couldn't help but tremble. Leo didn't expect that I would really dare to hit him. He raised his hand but couldn't bring himself to do anything. After all, Leo still cared about his reputation outside. At least, he wouldn't hit a woman in front of others like this. This was also why I dared to hit him in the hall. Perhaps I really scared Grace that time. Grace didn't come to pester me again. After I finished handling the resignation procedures, I submitted them to Leo. Leo just glanced at me and then signed his name with a big stroke. After I left the company, the plan with Hugh Yan was put on the agenda. Grace lived up to expectations and stole some documents from Leo. Those documents included the public funds he had embezzled secretly in the past 6 months and so on, coupled with real name reports from others. The investigators instantly swarmed into the company and took away the relevant personnel. I stood outside the cordon and watched as Leo was taken away. Half of the hatred weighing on me had already disappeared. These evidences were enough to keep Leo in prison for the rest of his life. Next was Grace. The Grace who wanted my heart. My eyes were as cold as poison as I looked at the tall buildings not far away. I retracted my gaze, hummed a little tune happily, and left briskly. I went to Hugh Yan's company. Because of my cooperation with Hugh Yan, no one stopped me. So, I smoothly went to Hugh Yan's office. After hesitating for a moment, I finally knocked on Hugh Yan's door. Soon, let out a low sigh. A pleasant voice came from inside. I raised my eyebrows, pushed the door open, and saw Grace sitting quietly by the tea table, making tea on her own. I ignored Grace's actions and walked straight up to Hugh Yan, saying in a low voice, "I have something to talk to you about." Hugh Yan raised his eyes, glanced at me, and then asked Grace to leave. I was quite satisfied with his attitude, so I didn't beat around the bush and directly asked, "Brother Yan, if I want to deal with Grace, will you stop me?" Hugh Yan was a bit stunned. After a moment, he shook his head and said, "As long as you're happy." Hearing Hugh Yan's indifferent words, I took a few unsteady steps back and said, "Aren't you curious why I want to deal with Grace? And what do you mean by that?" Hugh Yan picked up the teacup on the tea table and took a sip. "These aren't important. What's important is that I believe you won't harm others for no reason." My eyes became a bit moist. Besides my parents, only Hugh Yan was really on my side. After coming out of Hugh Yan's company, I began to investigate the surroundings of Grace. I found something interesting. Grace was a complete gangster in high school. She was criticized and informed by the school many times and was almost expelled. Following the clues, I also found an evidence. Grace, having fulfilled reinsertion, for some reason, caused the death of a girl. And Grace's family had some money, so they managed to cover up the matter. After that, Grace used the excuse of going abroad for further study. And what was even more ridiculous was that the first love that Leo had been longing for was actually that dead girl. Grace deceived Leo with her lies, and became Leo's first love as a matter of course. I looked at the information in my hand, and laughed so hard that tears came out, going around in circles. It was just one piece of evil fate after another. I put away the information I had found. I didn't mind giving this interesting information to Leo. Later, I managed to contact the family members of the victim and explained the reason. I also gave them a sum of money to let them spend their remaining years in peace. So, the couple sued Grace. And I sat in the audience, coldly watching Grace break down. After all, I had given all the information and evidence to the couple. Together with a famous lawyer, Grace was destined to lose this lawsuit. And Grace's parents knelt in front of the couple, begging them to spare Grace. However, the couple ignored them. After all, if the retribution didn't fall on themselves, they wouldn't feel the pain. I managed to bring those who had harmed me to justice as I wished. Walking out of the court, I felt for the first time in a long while that the sky was still so blue and the sun was warm. Hu Yan was waiting for me not far away. He opened his arms to me. After hesitating for a moment, I rushed into Hu Yan's arms. His embrace was still broad and could bring me a sense of security. Since dealing with Leo and Grace, I rarely gave myself a vacation. But after lying around for a few days, I was taken to a romance-themed restaurant by Hu Yan. I was a bit curious why Hu Yan chose such a place for a meal. But in the face of delicious food, I could ignore the surrounding environment. After the meal, Hu Yan said that he had to leave for a while, and asked me to wait for him to go back together. I was so bored that I watched the lovey-dovey people around and was a bit annoyed, wondering if Hu Yan did it on purpose. Until I caught a glimpse of Hu Yan not far away from the corner of my eye. He was holding the blue roses I liked in his hands, and walking with steady steps. I watched as Hu Yan walked towards me step by step, and my originally calm heart began to beat again. Hu Yan was a bit nervous, with a hint of caution in his eyes. "Celine, can you be my girlfriend? Don't refuse me right away. I can wait." After coming out of my relationship with Leo, I didn't want to be in a relationship again. But if the person was Hu Yan, it seemed that I could consider it. So I didn't refuse Hu Yan, but I didn't agree immediately either. I just said that I needed some time to think about it. Since Hu Yan confessed his feelings, he took me out to play from time to time. Watching Hu Yan bustling around for me, I somehow began to look forward to the rest of my life. Later, I agreed to be with Hu Yan. However, not long after, I received a call saying that Leo wanted to see me. After much hesitation, I decided to go and take a look. Even through the glass, I could feel that Leo had lost a lot of weight and his mental state was not good. The moment Leo saw me, his originally depressed body began to tremble slightly, and his weak voice came through the microphone. But when I heard Leo's voice, he said, I didn't expect that Leo would dream about the things in the previous life. But so what? Even if he repented now, what was the use? The Celine who loved him with all her heart had already died in that winter. It was Leo who had personally buried his rose. I didn't answer Leo's words. I just looked at him inferiorly. From my eyes, Leo seemed to see the love that he had buried with his own hands. He mumbled in a lost state. I'm sorry. I stood up, ignored Leo's words, and took out the information from my pocket. Anyway, Leo had the right to know the truth. After I left, Leo looked at the information I had placed outside the glass in a daze. Since then, I heard from others that Leo had gone crazy. I had been dating my boyfriend for 5 years. And only recently did I discover that the WeChat profile picture he hadn't changed for years was of the son he and his first love had raised for 8 years. I felt no stirrings in my heart. And I even felt like laughing a bit. I realized that I no longer loved Cassin exactly 10 years after I transmigrated into the book. On the eve of Chinese New Year, I was alone, with a pot of fragrant, spicy soup bubbling and boiling, the steam enveloping me. The cold congealed wontons were greasy, and just one glance made me lose my appetite. I shuffled around in my slippers, turned on all the lights in the room, and took out my phone. The chat history with Cassin was still from a week ago, where he said he wouldn't be coming back this month. Staring at this message, I typed, I cooked the spicy beef tallow hot pot that you like. But after thinking for a long time, I didn't send it. I clicked into his moments. The sweet photos of Cassin and Ella as the main characters. And the pictures of their family reunions had nothing to do with me. I carefully enlarged the first group photo, trying to find some clues in the photo that they had completely returned to the same bed. But I only found that the bed was neatly made, and the foot of the bed was spotlessly clean. I paced mechanically and stiffly to the bedroom door. Like a wandering spirit, I obsessively folded the shirts that Cassim liked to wear over and over again. Unfolding, folding, and repeating the process. Until the burning smell wafting from the pot suddenly woke me up. When I was going out of the bedroom door, I tripped over a potted green radish and fell to the ground. It was quiet all around, and the only sound was the crackling of the bursting bubbles in the pot. The indicator light of the temperature-controlled pot flickered twice, and then went out with a click. Rubbing my ankle, I suddenly thought, this is really boring. While packing my luggage, I took a moment to send Cassin a WeChat message. Let's break up. I typed, paused, and thought about what else to say. But then I suddenly realized that I couldn't write a long message for Cassin anymore. I don't know when it started. Every time I sent him a WeChat message, I would carefully consider every word. Those passionate and romantic words that used to come out easily seemed to be from a long gone time. Well, that's it then. My hand, which had reached the edge of the skirt, stopped. There were a few yellowish marks on the white-based floral dress. The style was old-fashioned and out of fashion long ago. I carefully folded it, smoothing out every crease, and then placed it in the black packing bag on the right. Like the other clothes inside, the housekeeping aunt would throw it away when she came to clean as scheduled tomorrow. As I was organizing, I found that after staying with Cassin for a year, my things couldn't even fill a 20-inch small suitcase. The most space-consuming thing turned out to be my graduation project from college. A thick stack of rolled-up designed rafts. Back then, my tutor had praised it as an excellent graduation project. Now, the edges of the paper were yellowing, and it had just seen the light after being at the bottom of the box. Pressed at the bottom of the box together with it was a half-filled overseas exchange registration form. The column behind expectations was scribbled over with a black pen, and it was impossible to tell what was originally written. I silently put these things away, took all my certificates, and zipped up the suitcase. When I was about to go out, my phone dinged, and Cassin replied with a. I felt an inexplicable sense of weariness. Almost instinctively, I typed a lot of words. I hesitated several times when pressing the enter key and finally deleted them one by one, leaving only a short line. I know Ella came back to the country a month ago, and I also know your feelings. Let's call it a day. Wish you happiness. I sighed. I still thought I was too hasty. Just sending, wish you happiness, would have been enough. This way, I would seem so free and easy. After all, he would only reply with another question mark. I pushed the door open, casually clicked on his profile picture to enlarge it. The pure white samoyed was sticking out. It stung. Smiling happily. It didn't match Cassin's image at all, yet he had used it for 7 or 8 years without changing. The electronic door lock beeped. I closed the door with my back to it, and my hand hovering over the delete button dropped. The way to avoid seeing the question mark was simple. I deleted Cassin's WeChat and blocked all his contact information. By the way, DD safety reminder, please take a seat in the back row of the vehicle. I put on my headphones and quietly watched the scenery outside the car window quickly receding. In fact, as a person who transmigrated into a book, I have become rather mediocre. I'm not a glamorous person with overpowered abilities, nor a vicious female supporting character with the capital to have a passionate and dramatic life. I'm just a trivial and insignificant cannon fodder character. Just like before I transmigrated into the book, my parents died early, and I could only be busy with life alone, dealing with trivial matters, and living an ordinary life with all my efforts. I even accepted the fact of transmigrating into Yanxiao Yan Yan with a bit of glee. Anyway, I had nothing to worry about in the other world. And the young boys and girls in this book who unswervingly pursued their dreams had been the lighthouses guiding me forward since I was 18. This kind of joy, no less than meeting an idol that one has been a fan of, is indescribable and wonderful. But I never expected to have an intersection with the main characters. They are all talented people, too dazzling and outstanding. For an ordinary person like me, they are only suitable to be admired from afar, and can only be admired from afar. Just taking a few glances at them in magazines or on TV from a distance is enough. But when Casson suddenly stood in front of me, I admit that reason doesn't always exist in ordinary people. This was the novel I secretly read over and over again by the light in my quilt in high school. It's no exaggeration to say that this novel accompanied me through my entire youth and contained all my beautiful fantasies about a bright future. When fantasy overlapped with reality, even a cannon fodder would overestimate themselves and chase the light that illuminated them. Please remind passengers to take their mobile phones, handbags and other personal belongings. And be careful of passing vehicles when opening the door. The reminder, sound of arriving near the destination interrupted my thoughts. The driver master kindly helped me take the luggage out of the trunk. After thanking him, I dragged the suitcase towards the newly rented house. After getting everything sorted out, I was so tired that I just took a shower and then fell onto the bed and fell asleep. I had no dreams that night. When I woke up in the morning, my just turned on phone was making a continuous inkling sound. And 99 unread messages were like a cosmic explosion had happened yesterday. Most of them were cheerful New Year greetings from friends. Only Vivian and Grace were bombarding in our 3-person group. Vivian forwarded a screenshot, which was the WeChat chat record from Casson's perspective. Under the unsent question mark in front of it was a bright red exclamation mark. Vivian first sent more than a dozen shocked rabbit emojis. And then she and Grace analyzed dozens of messages back and forth. Finally, having fulfilled liabsi, the two of them came to the conclusion that Casson was regaining his childlike innocence and playing a prank. I casually replied with a, "It's true," and then logged into social media platforms other than WeChat and deleted the traces of my previous foolishness one by one. On Weibo, I had recorded a lot of my daily life with Casson. Or rather, I had recorded a lot of my one-sided efforts to be with Casson in my daily life. Learning to cook the dishes he liked, buying the clothes he liked, styling my hair in the way he liked, and engaging in the industry he liked. I would be elated because of his smile and satisfied because of his praise. Completely, I had become a sycophant who lost myself without even realizing it. When I was madly in love with Casson, I thought this wasn't being humble. But just because of love. Loving someone means making sacrifices for them. Besides, there was a huge gap between Casson's and my status. Looking back now, how naive I was. Love isn't cold-hearted. Nor is it a one-person show. And it's not the pretense that one person desperately maintains. When I deleted the last post, I looked at this Weibo post published on January 1, 2015, and still couldn't help but get red-eyed. A star that wants to shine on land, picture Happy New Year. I've been working on this draft for a long time. I wonder if I can give it to the other person as a lover when I finish the design. Once deleted, it cannot be restored. Are you sure? Yes. I held my phone, staring blankly at the clean Weibo page. The pushed-out advertisement page had a picture of the little prince on it. She's not an ordinary rose. She's your rose. The time you spent on her made her irreplaceable. After a while, I thought that Casson was nothing like the rose. When Grace came to my place carrying a bag of food, I was cooking. After opening the door, we stared at each other, speechless for a moment. It was Grace who sniffed the aroma of the food in the air twice, then threw the food on the floor cursing, and then threw herself onto the lazy sofa. "Yo, you seem to be in a good mood. You turned off your phone and ignored everything, leaving the two of us in a hurry, worried that you might do something stupid. And here you are, cooking so leisurely?" I forced a bitter smile. "Dear sister, stop making fun of me." She pouted and snorted. Then she sat up, took out 2 cans of beer from the food bag on the floor, sat on the ground, and motioned for me to come over and drink. I turned off the stove, wiped my hands, and gave her a sofa cushion to sit on, afraid she might catch a cold. Grace took a sip of beer and let out a sigh. "I really didn't expect that one day you would take the initiative to break up." I clinked glasses with her and silently finished a can of beer. I wanted to say something, but didn't know where to start. "Yeah. I've completely figured it out. It's tiring to be left hanging like this all the time. It doesn't matter who mentions it first." I casually crushed the can. Grace has never been a good drinker. Since college. We'd been in the same dormitory. Until she went abroad for further study after graduation. In all these years, a number of times she took the initiative to buy and drink alcohol can be counted on one's fingers. She quickly blushed. One hand was pulling me, and the other was raising the beer can. Acting drunk. Xing xing. Don't be like this. I'd rather you have a good cry. Sister will take you to Flamenco Beach. It's so beautiful. Shout a few times towards the sea to vent. And get rid of the pent-up feelings of these years. I grinned. Okay. Grace continued to murmur. We're so young. It's hard to find a three-legged toad in the world. But there are plenty of two-legged men. Right? Don't be like this, Serena. I'm scared. Her voice was choked. The beer can rolled on the ground, with not a drop of liquid left. Grace suddenly hugged me tightly and forced me to lean on her shoulder. She was trembling. Be good. Don't do stupid things again. Okay? I hugged her back. The loose sleeves of my home clothes fell down, revealing a scar from an old cut on my left wrist. It was because of Casson. But also not entirely because of Casson. I can't blame him. No. I won't. Once is enough to be stupid. I promised her. And then asked. Do you want to eat pine nut corn and stuffed mushrooms? She nodded with snot and tears. Grace is easy to coax. Her emotions come and go quickly. In the evening, she excitedly made a video call to Vivian again. She pointed the camera at the table, which was in a mess after a meal, and showed off. Jealous? You had to go to that godforsaken place to collect faux cards during the spring festival. These are Xing Xing's exclusive dishes. You can't have a bite. Trying to hold back my laughter, I greeted Vivian, who was grimacing on the phone. Vivian was startled for a moment, then smiled at me, showing two small tiger teeth. When the camera turned back, the young man with light blue hair took a deep breath, made all kinds of funny faces for a while, and was then mocked by Grace with a barrage of sarcastic remarks. It was really lively. It was different from Casson's place, which was cold and lonely. There, only the TV that was always on, playing soap operas, provided a bit of a human touch. I propped my chin up, looking at the stars in the distance outside the window, feeling lighthearted. Vivian went to Hu Ailing alone to collect inspiration for her recent design and was feeling bored at the moment. Grace had a flash of inspiration, and, a bit tipsy, suggested, how about playing some games? The three of us haven't played games together for a long time. Vivian scolded her with a smile, telling her to get lost. She said Grace was so drunk that she was slurring her words, and that playing games with her would surely lead to a dismal record, despite her complaints. They made an appointment to play games together during the day tomorrow, claiming it was to relive their youthful memories. The call ended with Grace shouting, I'll always be 18. She put her arm around my neck and said with a big smile, Xing xing. We'll always be 18. We have a long way to go. We're still young. When I downloaded Honor of Kings again, I stared at the 5 ms download speed indicator and suddenly remembered that many years ago, the three of us often played games together. Later, as our studies got busy and my mind was no longer on it, I gradually stopped. At that time, Vivian, with a head of blue hair, cock-ily raised his chin and said, Follow me, and you'll win even if you just know how to walk. Grace and I lay on the dormitory bed, huddled together, and chattered, asking what this skill was and how to use that skill. The little yellow bird outside the window hopped around, chirping. The intense afternoon sunlight shone through the banyan leaves and fell on the warm brown floor, glistening like rippling waves. The hero randomly selected in the game wore a one-eyed Daisha, gracefully held a cane, and softly chanted with red lips, as if coming through the ancient soul. I just stared blankly, as if some tiny, itchy branches swayed twice, tickling my heart. Passion, dreams, hope, Vivian's voice, urging me to come back to my senses and confirm, overlapped with the memory. The hero selection interface, like a reset of fate, randomly selected me late I again. It was only when I pressed the confirm button that I realized that the slight, itchy throbbing that had arisen for no reason back and had turned into burning tears over time. Grace panicked and threw away her phone to wipe my tears. I opened my mouth. My voice hoarse. Crying silently. I didn't know what I was crying for. Was it for giving up my dreams like a fool? Or was it that after all these years, my friends were still sincere, while I, because of Casson, became stubborn and even distanced myself from them for a while? Grace hugged me. And in a hurry. She started crying with me. She sniffled and scolded Vivian, saying he had no sense and shouldn't have rushed me, which made me unhappy. Vivian apologized nervously on the phone. I could almost imagine him touching his nose with red ears. I cried so hard that I was out of breath. It was not until the teammates in the entertainment mode frantically clicked on our 3 avatars, accusing us of AFK away from keyboard, that I picked up my phone and apologized first. It had nothing to do with the game. The ones who should really be apologized to were Grace and Vivian. I cried throughout the whole game. A tear seemed to have opened a valve, pouring out all the water in my brain over the past few years and the depression of these days. I'm sorry. I shook my head randomly, my voice thick with a nasal tone. I'm really sorry. Grace comforted me in a flurry. She patted my back, trying to hold back her trembling voice and reassuring me that it was all over and that it would be better after crying. I'm sorry for disappointing you so much. I've made you worry so much these years. I hadn't cried my heart out for a long time. I used to think that people would lose control of their emotions only in the face of great joys and sorrows, in grand and magnificent moments. But I never thought that it was just a simple, warm, and ordinary afternoon that made me collapse completely. Just like a child who couldn't get their favorite toy, throwing a tantrum on the ground. I was already past that age. What had I missed in these years of being obsessed with Casson? Passion, dreams, hope, friends, and even dignity. The east wind brought the clear chirping of the yellow bird. The colorful light, like cellophane, shone on me again. It was like a dream. After waking up, I realized that in this world, even without the main characters, everything still goes on. Whether I'm a cannon fodder or a love-struck fool, even the smallest person has friends and things they want to pursue. A heart that is hot, bright, and beating. After crying that day, I did feel much better. I have to admit that I was pretending to be okay. Pretending not to be sad. Pretending that my heart was completely dead, just wanting to leave myself the last bit of free and easy dignity. But now, I was really enthusiastically searching for travel guides for Puerto Rico and carefully making a detailed plan. Grace was all smiles. But as the New Year's holiday passed, she would soon go abroad to continue her studies. She couldn't help but tentatively ask me, "Xing Xing, what are you going to do next?" I paused for a long time with my hands typing on the keyboard. I said, "I haven't thought it through yet." Grace seemed to want to say something but held back. Finally, hadn't fulfilled my obsession. She slapped her forehead and sighed. I probably knew what she wanted to say. At 12 o'clock in the morning, Grace was fast asleep. I gently opened my laptop and turned on only a small desk lamp. I took a deep breath, and my fingertips were slightly trembling on the keyboard. The scar on my wrist started to twitch painfully, as if the wound from that year hadn't healed, and a newly grown granulation was throbbing. I looked at the email in the draft box of my mailbox. The scheduled sending time was repeatedly cancelled and set again by me. I still didn't have the courage to click send. After quickly minimizing the window, I started holding the mouse and browsing the page messages that I had opened yesterday. The desk lamp elongated my shadow. If someone saw me, they might think I was a ghost. Grace was so scared that she kicked off one of her slippers. She had been sleepy at first, but now she was wide awake. She walked up to me and complained. When I woke up, the bedding next to me was cold. "Xing Xing, do you know how scared I was just now?" Her voice trailed off as she caught a glimpse of the content on my screen. "An application to Professor Zhu and BCU?" I awkwardly rubbed my hands. My voice as soft as a mosquito's buzz. "Yeah. I want to give it a try again." Grace was quick-witted and snatched my mouse. She scrolled the mouse wheel suspiciously. After confirming the content, she muttered to herself, "Am I dreaming? How could something I didn't even dare to dream of come true?" She pinched her own arm. And then, as if waking up from a dream, said, "Send it." What are you waiting for? A prodigal son who returns is more precious than gold. If Professor Zhu sees your email, he will surely still recognize you as his student. I lowered my eyes and didn't say anything. She shook my shoulders, asking me to look at her. Seeing me like this? She slapped the back of my head in frustration. She said, "Do you know how much I dreamed of studying abroad with you? I didn't dare to mention it or talk about it these years. Talent is something that can't be easily found. How could a silly person give up on themselves because of others? You've already wasted a lot of time because of Cassin. Do you want to keep muddling along? Are you worse than anyone? Are you worse than Ella? I used to think so. But when I actually took the initiative to break up with Cassin and cleared all the traces of Cassin on Weibo, looking back, I realized that there was another strong emotion surging in my chest. It was intense regret and unwillingness. I finally mustered up the courage to send the email. But for several days, I subconsciously didn't dare to check my inbox. I was afraid of getting a reply and also afraid of not getting one. I couldn't imagine how Professor Zhu would view her disappointing student who gave up halfway. I was waiting in anxiety for the sword of judgment hanging above me to fall. A few days passed in a flash. I didn't wait for a reply but received a call from Cassin. "Hey, I was wondering why Cassin had such free time to pick me up at the airport. So it's because he's feeling frustrated and lonely now that no one is by his side. He's just being fussy." Vivian's sarcastic voice came distantly through the receiver. It seemed that Cassin had directly snatched the phone from him. Cassin's breathing was heavy. He was obviously annoyed by Vivian. Or maybe he wasn't used to taking the initiative to call me. Just as I was about to politely hang up, Cassin's deep and hoarse voice sounded, "Why did you move?" I subconsciously glanced at the calendar on the table. It was the 8th day of the first lunar month. I had moved out for over a week, and he just noticed. My heart started pounding wildly, and an inexplicable emotion rushed to my head. I said word by word, "We broke up." I didn't agree. I could even imagine Cassin frowning, rubbing his temples, and looking at me from under his brows. It was as if I was trying some trick again to make him look at me more. "We didn't get married. We don't need both sides' consent." Cassin was silent for a very long time. So long that I thought he had casually thrown the phone to Vivian. And Vivian didn't notice that the call wasn't hung up. After a long time, I heard him ask, sounding a bit aggrieved, "Why did you throw away that floral dress?" I wasn't sure which dress he was referring to. Cassin was always generous with money. He had a preference for the fresh floral style. No matter how hard to buy luxury or niche brands were, they would arrive at my hands within a few days after their release. I casually replied, "It's just a dress I don't wear anymore. Didn't Dantley throw away that bag of clothes when she was cleaning? I'm sorry if you saw the items I left behind. If it's convenient, please throw away the whole bag." "Serena." Cassin's voice suddenly turned cold, filled with suppressed anger. "I'm asking you why you threw away that floral dress from 8 years ago." Why did he suddenly ask about an old dress from 8 years ago? Anyway, having fulfilled Ladsai. It was just a dress that I randomly took out of the closet in a hurry for the high school graduation party. It had been gathering dust ever since. I only wore it once. And then never again because it got dirty. My emotions were completely dampened. Before pressing the hang up button, I said softly, "Because I like clothes with bright and cheerful colors." In fact, I always knew that Ella liked floral style dresses. The proud girl in the midsummer sunlight, holding a design drawing in a floral dress, was Cassin's beloved. And I was just a fake. A fake who happened to appear during his single period and voluntarily catered to everything. Cassin didn't call again. This was normal. In the past few years, a number of times he took the initiative to call was also few and far between. Let alone now that we've broken up. I didn't have time to think about him anymore. However, several brands that he often shopped at kept reminding me to pick up the goods where they would deliver them to my door. I was so annoyed that I blocked them one by one. Fortunately, things quieted down later. Grace and I each carried a small suitcase and embarked on a flight to Puerto Rico with light luggage. Maybe it was the new year. And I was lucky. I saw the beach and passed through the tropical rainforest. The breath of nature washed away all my bad luck. First, there was a reply from Professor Zhu. And then an invitation letter from BCU. I couldn't lie still anymore. My chest was burning with excitement. And I couldn't help shouting a few times towards the vast Caribbean Sea. Grace comforted me by hugging me. And then we both lay on the beach. We watched the stars and the moon together. The night sea breeze carried a bit of coolness. She excitedly pointed at the twinkling stars in the sky and said, "See? Sooner or later, our Xing Xing will shine like this too." Our journey wasn't long. Only a week. Considering Grace's schedule, we finally decided that she would directly take a plane back to Country Y, while I had to return to China first to contact Professor Zhu and handle a lot of trivial procedures. Grace waved her hand reluctantly and said, "Xing Xing, I'll be waiting for you in Country Y. This time, you must come." I agreed and my eyes felt a bit hot. I had promised her. I wouldn't break my promise again. The plane took off with a rumble. I looked out of the porthole full of hope at the continuous white clouds. Grace secretly told Vivian my arrival time behind my back, not wanting me to go back from the airport alone. I was looking for the conspicuous blue-haired person, but unexpectedly met Cassin's dark gaze. He was dressed very casually today. His already handsome and tall figure was made to look even younger, standing there with his hands in his pockets. He was a scenery on his own. I stood there and stared at him for 2 seconds. For a moment, I thought he was here to pick me up. Until another figure in a floral dress appeared. Ella took the initiative to walk up and affectionately hold his arm, saying, "I just asked. Snowball is about to land. Why was she here?" I couldn't help frowning. And my mind couldn't stop recalling an interview with Ella by foreign media. "Miss Ella. Nice to meet you for the first time. There is a saying in your country Z that a person's handwriting reflects their character, and things are similar to their owners. You and your Midsummer series are both unforgettable. Excuse me, Amisel. Can I take this as the highest compliment to the humanity of my works?" She was extremely talented, graceful, neither humble nor arrogant. She had a sweet appearance, but the most resilient and strong inner self. Such a girl was the high-profile leading lady. No one could not be attracted to her. So Cassin moved his gaze away from mine, and gently lowered his eyelids and softly said something to her. I stared blankly as the airport broadcast announced flight information and watched Ella happily take the pet carrier. The pure white big dog was fluffy and was pushing against the carrier. This was the profile picture that Cassin hadn't changed for several years. A small pet briefly mentioned in the original text. The dog's son, he and Ella had raised abroad. I suddenly remembered when Cassin and I first moved in together. At that time, I thought I had the whole world and was extremely excited. I freely mentioned that I wanted to raise a cat. The soft little orange cat seemed to have lost its way. It looked lonely and weak among a bunch of pet cats. It closed its eyes and meowed loudly at me, its little pink nose twitching. I watched it in front of the glass showcase for a long time. The shop owner said this orange cat was the offspring of a nearby stray cat. Seeing that it would die if left alone, he took pity and picked it up, but didn't plan to sell it. If a kind-hearted person was willing to adopt it and feed it well, he would give it away directly. Unfortunately, heading puffily, its appearance was ordinary, and I was the first one to approach it actively. The young and impulsive Cassin frowned, with his hands in his pockets, and only left a cold, "I don't like it. Don't cause trouble." The shop female boss's embarrassed smile and attempts to smooth things over had long faded. After several years, I went to that pet store again, but it had already closed down. I suddenly wondered if that little orange cat was adopted in the end. Or did it just disappear among a group of beautiful pedigree pet cats? With the store closing down, was it driven out? Perhaps that little orange cat had never managed to open anyone's heart. If it never did, there was no question of being driven out. Vivian patted me on the shoulder from behind and said out of breath, "There was a traffic jam on the way. Fortunately, I'm in time. What are you standing here thinking about?" I came back to my senses and said, "I just suddenly remembered that Cassin's WeChat profile picture is actually quite cute." He looked at me as if I had seen a ghost and said, "You're not." I interrupted him and said, "No. Let's go." As I passed by Cassin, I was calm at first. Unexpectedly, He suddenly grabbed my wrist and said, "I have something to say to you." I pursed my lips and told him to let go. Kassan knitted his brows. His hand was like a pair of iron pliers. And we were in a stalemate. Seeing that Vivian was about to lose his temper and his face was turning dark, a sudden ding-dong sound broke the silence. "Ah!" Ella exclaimed. She put down the pet carrier, gave me a disdainful glance from the corner of her eye, then turned to Kassan and said softly, "Auntie asked us to take Snowball to see her. She also asked why you didn't answer the phone." As if on cue, Kassan's phone rang. I slowly pulled my hand back, gently removing Kassan's fingers one by one, ignoring the surprised look in Kassan's eyes. I didn't want to delay them because I finally realized that they were the real family. From beginning to end. I pulled Vivian and left the airport in big strides. Without looking back. The things to prepare for going abroad were not many, but the procedures were very complicated. It took half a month to get started. When I received Kassan's call again, I was struggling with preparing my enrollment materials. I stared helplessly at this unfamiliar phone number for a long time, not knowing what to say for a moment. Kassan asked before I could hang up, "You're going abroad?" "Yeah." "Decided?" "Yeah." Kassan fell silent. I thought he wouldn't speak anymore. But then I heard a dull thud from his side, like a fist hitting the table in frustration. "Serena, are you serious?" "What else?" I found it a bit funny. This kind of conversation, with simple yeas and rhetorical questions, seemed familiar. But the roles were reversed, and now it was me being perfunctory to Kassan. "Stop messing around. Serena. You know what I hate the most. Don't use this as an act." His anger was palpable even to the phone. Was I acting? I fell into thought. In the eyes of someone who doesn't like you, perhaps every move, even every breath, seems a bit off. For this so-called bit off, I had been trying hard since graduating from high school for 8 years. From getting together to living together. Until the end. I still couldn't bridge that gap. There were mountains and seas between us. And these mountains and seas were endless. And the world could not be leveled. I smiled softly and said, "I've known since for years ago that being melodramatic and acting won't get me anything from you. After all, you don't care. And it will only make you dislike me. So I haven't made the same mistake knowingly for a long time." Kassan's breathing became much heavier. "What about you? Do you know what I hate?" "Kassan." I clearly stated all the rules and regulations word by word, no longer being humble and afraid that he would hang up or not reply to my messages. "I hate floral dresses. I hate natural long hair. I hate studying finance for postgraduate studies. I hate eating spicy hot pots because every time I can only cook a bowl of wontons, pick a few vegetables, and pretend that I like it. Because it was you, Kassan. So I could change and accept everything. When you meet someone you like, no one will stick to their own rules. The moment you see that person, you know that all your bottom lines will only keep giving way." I put down the whole stack of materials and relaxed my fingertips, which had turned pale from excessive force. "You don't know anything." He naturally didn't know that I had lost my parents early and grew up in an orphanage. For a girl, how to study, how to survive, and how to rightfully study in the favorite jewelry design department. There were times when the harshness of society came knocking. But I never gave in. Nor did I accept my fate. Even if I was just trying to live an ordinary life. I had my self-esteem and pride to support me. It was ridiculous that the reason why Ella broke up with him back then was that love would delay her career development abroad. This was the first year I gave up my dream. And everything was in pieces. I couldn't figure it out. And all that was left was despair. Later, lying in the hospital, I figured it out. Grace cried until her eyes were swollen. And Vivian didn't sleep all night. The two of them called me an idiot. Why did I cut my wrist? I was an idiot. A sycophant. But just like the little prince's rose, I couldn't extricate myself. It was hard to tell whether it was obsession, love, or the sunk cost that I was more reluctant to part with. And when the enthusiasm was exhausted and there was no hope in sight, leaving Kassan was only a relief. Not sadness. All the procedure documents were prepared. And all that was left was a tutor's recommendation letter. When I went to University A, I felt a bit nervous. Professor Zhu's recommendation letter was sincere and was 2 pages long. The white-haired but energetic old lady was a bit happy and couldn't help patting me. She said, "You're not eating well. You've lost weight." Seeing the kind teacher from those years again, I felt like a child returning home, and my nose became sour. Grace and I were her most proud students. Professor Zhu, who still had a childlike heart, always said, "So what if Professor Lee next door has a student like Ella? What's there to show off? Grace and I are no worse than anyone." She always held this idea. Before I was about to leave the country, Professor Zhu warmly invited me to stay at her home for a few days. Like all elders, she gently admonished me. "You're only 27 years old. You still have a long way to go. Don't give up easily again." She gently stroked my wrist, and the slightly calloused fingertips made me feel a bit itchy. I smelled the faint osmanthus fragrance on her body, and was suddenly transported back to university 8 years ago. Everything seemed to be still in time. Vivian volunteered to send me to the airport. His bright blue hair was overly ostentatious. When he lowered his sunglasses, he looked like an idol afraid of being recognized. He slightly narrowed his peach blossom eyes and made a gentlemanly gesture of invitation, saying, "This beautiful lady. Welcome to Get Back on Track." I smiled and said, "Thank you, Senior." Vivian said jealously, "You still remember to call me Senior?" As the skylight emerged and the mist gradually rose, I got into Vivian's car and headed to the airport. When getting off the car, Vivian glanced at the rearview mirror, clicked his tongue in dissatisfaction, and hit the steering wheel. He said, "How about changing your flight ticket?" I followed his gaze and shook my head slowly but firmly. "I haven't seen him since we broke up. It seems like I'm avoiding him," I said, trying to find some humor in the bitterness. Before, I was chasing after him, but he wasn't interested. Now that he's chasing me, I seem like a coward. Casson followed Vivian all the way. When he got out of the car, his face didn't look good. His tall figure was huddled dejectedly in a sweatshirt. His fine black hair wasn't carefully groomed, and a bit of it hung down to cover his eyebrows. Casson's eyes were purely jet black, paired with a pair of phoenix-shaped eyes. When he looked at people, he was extremely focused and earnest, making it easy for others to get lost in his gaze. "Serena." "Yes." I adjusted my skirt. My hanging black curls just brushed against my bright lipstick. I thought I was really sorry to Grace. When we were still on Puerto Rico Island, she spent hours excitedly browsing the recommendation apps, wishing she could directly put a wig on me. But I wanted to embrace the new Tamara with Serena's original style. "It's me." There was surprise in Casson's eyes. He seemed to have a lot to say, yet also seemed to have nothing to say. He stood there in a daze, as if thoroughly drenched in the rainbow-foaming rain. Looking back, all the traces of his coming were quickly buried. His self-assumed understanding was insignificant. He just didn't have the right to say anything. I followed beside Vivian. As I passed by him, I asked in a low voice, "Casson, it's been 8 years. Do you really know me?" He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. His voice was stuck. "The shirts are all washed and folded in the third compartment on the left side of the cabinet in the master bedroom." I saw the shirt with wrinkled collar that was comically stuffed inside his sweatshirt, with the collar slipping down. I used to take care of everything. It had only been a few months since we last met, and he shouldn't be in such a mess. I let out a barely audible sigh and gradually walked away. The wind would carry a message for me, "Never see you again." I studied abroad for 2 years. And it wasn't easy. The foundation I had missed over the past few years couldn't be made up with just a few words. I burned the midnight oil every day, and even Grace advised me not to push myself so hard. But doing what I love makes me happy. Even after editing and compilation, her words still have their own style. Grace snatched my magazine, clicked her tongue twice, and pointed at the last line of words. "See this? It says this new series was designed for a special person. She's grateful for his years of support and companionship. Without him, she couldn't have achieved what she has today. But from now on, she intends to return to a normal life, put her career on hold for a while, and looks forward to starting her own small family." She pouted and said, It's almost like she's saying she's moved by Cassan's guardianship and wants to get married. I casually put down the magazine. Didn't the senior say he didn't decast a drink when we're back in the country? Grace's eyes lit up. That's right. We'll extort a meal from him later. But as soon as she said that, she felt something was wrong. Is he targeting me? Grace doesn't have a good tolerance for alcohol. One glass of beer is enough to get her drunk. Extorting him seems like a distant dream. We made an appointment to meet at our old place. A music bar with a lot of style. At night, the neon lights flicker. When we arrived, Vivian hung up the phone irritably. I'm busy. I can't pick him up. As long as he doesn't drink himself to death. You can let him drink as much as he wants. Who is it? Grace plopped down carelessly. Ella. Vivian motioned for me to sit down too. Cassan is drunk. And Ella went to get him. She can't carry him alone. Grace said in a sarcastic tone. Oh, so it seems that even President Cassan will get drunk. Not just for Ella? Vivian said. He's been like this for the past 2 years. He goes crazy on some special days. Grace asked. What kind of crazy? Isn't Ella planning to slow down her career? Vivian paused and then said. What goes around comes around. It's retribution. What about him and Ella? The white moonlight has turned into plain white rice. And the mosquito blood has turned into a vermilion mole. I was ordering drinks when 2 pairs of eyes stared at me. I had to look up. Xing xing, hen xing. Grace said earnestly. Never go back to a guy, just because he comes back. Don't go back to an old flame. After all these years. This music bar is booming and is no longer as quiet as before. In the noisy voices. It suddenly dawned on me that today is the day of my high school graduation and it's also the day I first met Cassan and Vivian. Time flies so fast. I just pushed the glass and said. I don't go back to old flames. The exhibition is held on the high-floor garden of the most famous skyscraper in City B. It's night. And everything is ablaze with light. I'm wearing high heels and feeling a bit clumsy. Vivian gave me a hug. Little Xing Xing. You can do it. Grace pushed him away. This dreamboat is an improved version of your graduation project back then. Go ahead with confidence. No one can steal your spotlight. She looked around meaningfully. Cassan is also invited. He looks every bit the industry elite. At least from a distance. His gaze is firmly fixed on the most prominent dreamboat showcase in the exhibition hall. When he looks at me, the bloodshot eyes in his eyes are shocking. Ella is wearing a decent dress and answering the questions from her peers with a stiff smile. What do you think of this junior who graduated from the same school as you? She's a very talented newcomer. Grace walked over with a glass of champagne and said with a faint ah. Oh. How pitiful. Cassan is over there. She put the champagne on the tray with a smile. Have a pleasant visit. Miss Ella. I didn't pay much attention to how Ella's face looked. After the opening, the spotlight shone on me, illuminating the dreamboat. The host attracted the attention of the whole audience, and then asked the designer to talk about the original intention of the dreamboat design. I stood on the red stage. The dark blue gemstone necklace wrapped in red velvet shone with a silver bright luster under the magnesium light. What you see now is the dreamboat, with redesigned details. I'm grateful to my friends for their sincere and unwavering support over the years. The dreamboat wouldn't be here without their support and encouragement. And its original intention. I took a deep breath and read out the small words engraved on the showcase. Only by washing away the mist on the heart with water can the glory illuminate the original dream. In the thick fog, one may lose their way. But the things done with down-to-earth efforts will quietly bloom in another form. We're all ordinary people. Since birth, it seems there's a gap between us and those geniuses. But ordinary people also have the right to pursue their dreams. And the reason not for anything else, but to light up ourselves. Many years ago, I was confused by illusions. Always wanting to rely on the warmth of others to gain the strength to move forward. Later, I found that I actually don't like moths flying towards the light, gathering together in large numbers. I prefer the me who hid in the quilt, huddled in the corner, and bit by bit read books and did designs. What lights me up is not the dream-chasing stories of others, but myself. It's the dream. The audience was silent for a moment. Then thunderous applause broke out. I saw tears glistening in Grace's eyes. And Vivian led the applause with a gratified and satisfied look, clapping the loudest. I gracefully bowed and left. It was only when I reached the backstage that I suddenly realized that I had been crying all the way. I touched my cold cheeks and wet eyes. This is the epiphany after I turned back from the wrong path. The joy of a dream come true. And all the grievances of the last bit of unwillingness buried in my heart. I suddenly remembered the unprovoked anger I had towards Casson when we just broke up. The anger was because I still cared. And my emotions could still be stirred. When the cannon fodder leaves the stage dimly. It's not that I didn't expect to leave some thoughts behind. Waiting for the Prince Charming to plead for me to stay several times. After giving myself enough face. I would pick up a bit of self-esteem. Called reserve. But actually secretly happy. And create a happy ending. But now I suddenly realize that those self-esteems are not given by Casson's belated affection. But by myself. This is my first show in the country. My new life. After the exhibition ended. I walked straight towards Casson in the audience. I let go of the past and handed him the cufflinks that I completed and made into physical objects when I was abroad. The design drawing of this pair of cufflinks was first born in 2015 when I was a sophomore in college. The work that sneaked in personal feelings in the design class finally became a real object after 8 years. Unfortunately, things have changed. And people have changed too. Casson looked at me walking towards him with surprise in his eyes. The famous President Casson was visibly flustered for a moment. Casson grabbed my hand. His nose red, eyes red, and his lips trembling as he asked, "Serena, let's stop this. I know I was wrong. Can we get to know each other again and start over?" He might have misunderstood and thought that me giving him the cufflinks was giving him a chance. I shook my head, firmly and resolutely pulling my hand back bit by bit. I calmly watched the joy in his eyes fade away until he lost control and his voice became hoarse. He's such a clean, loving person. Looking closely, he didn't even shave his stubble clean. But it has nothing to do with me anymore. The one who will change his razor blade in time for him won't be me anymore. The one who will change the new scented foam gel for him won't be me either. And the one who will fold the shirt neatly and put it at the foot of the bed won't be me. 2 years have passed. He should be used to it. Just like I got used to those countless sleepless nights in the past. I gave him the cufflinks to completely erase everything related to him from my world and to say goodbye to the past. Let the past be in the past. Just like the little thing of loving Casson in the past. It's completely over. I nodded politely to Casson, turned around, and left without looking back. The air in City B is fresh. And the sky isn't foggy. The midsummer sun is blazing and dazzling. The fat orange cat that has been wandering under the tree shade for a few days and refuses to leave lazily stretches its body and affectionately rubs against my trouser leg. My Weibo keeps making noises. After being verified with a V, my account is gaining followers rapidly, reminding me that a brand new life is waiting for me. I squinted my eyes, greedily breathing in the taste of freedom. It's so nice. When I got home at night, after thinking about it, I still posted a Weibo on this empty account that I had deleted all content from. After refreshing, a new edited post appeared on the clean account. In the photo, the fluffy and soft-washed orange cat is comfortably squinting its eyes, squeezing into someone's arms regardless of the heat, and still holding the half-eaten freeze-dried food in its mouth, looking gluttonous and cute, which is very healing. I couldn't help but smile, tapped its chubby head, put down my phone, and prepared to take a bath and have a good sleep. The phone is still ringing. Casson's long messages, one longer than the other, are left unread. The faintly lit phone screen is still on the Weibo interface. Xing Xing Dai and Engvi, picture congratulations on finding a new home. Welcome to my new life.